Hi guys, this is vf.miniatures Warhammer Tactics series, and today we'll talk about the new rules for Necrons. Yesterday a couple of armies got hit pretty hard with the nerf bat. Those were Drukhari, AdMech, and the Orcs. And these are good news for Necron players already, because we won't be seeing those unkillable lists of Orc buggies or 6 AdMech planes anytime soon, and it's great for the game and great for Necron players that have been struggling in the competitive scene for a time now. But as well as nerfing some armies, Games Workshop introduced some new rules for the armies that they have thought to be the underdogs at the moment, and one of those are Necrons, for obvious reasons. As soon as the hype of the new Necron Codex dissolved and the quote-unquote unkillable blobs of Necron warriors became the fantasy that they always were, it became pretty apparent that the Necrons need a lot of help. They are pretty slow, they don't have enough firepower, ranged or melee, and they are not as resilient as people initially thought about them. And one of the things that everyone, including me, didn't like about the Necrons, and I've talked about it in the competitive analysis of the Necron Codex, is that Necrons are extremely restrictive with their keywords, especially with the core keyword. We had the smallest amount of core keyworded units in all of the 9th edition codexes. But it's all about to change, because we got 9 more units with the core keyword. I repeat, 9 more units. Now we have 14 of them, and basically all the units that should have had the core keyword from the start now have it. And as you can imagine, it's very important, because most of the synergies, the most powerful synergies in the Necron Codex revolve around the core keyword, as they usually do in all the other codexes. Previously, the army was strangely divided into 3 parts: the destroyer cults of the low-cost destroyers and low-cost heavy destroyers, the canoptic units, and the main part of the army, the warriors, the Lich Guard, and stuff like that. And also there was a strange appendix of Triarch Praetorians, and Triarch Stalker. Now it feels more brought together, more like an army, and I think it will be more pleasant to play this army moving forwards, because you will feel like all the units do what they should and what they're supposed to do. So let's discuss the combos that we can use with these new changes. First of all, the Technomancers are awesome now. They can revive almost any unit in your army as long as it's not a character and a vehicle. So your 60-point low-cost destroyers, I mean the heavy ones, your 35-point Scorpax or your 35-point Wraith, they all can be revived with your Technomancers, and now Technomancers are the same great unit as the Chief Apothecary in Space Marines. And now previously never used Deathless Arise stratagem for 1 command point to use the revivability of the Technomancer again is very useful now, because, for example, if you have 2 units of Scorpax, you can revive one model from one unit and another model in another unit. Or if you have a unit of Scorpax and Wraith, again, you can do that too with your Technomancer, which makes them one of the best characters, along with the Chronomancers that give you a 5-up in 1 and reroll charges. Another thing I adore about this change is that you can finally use the Veil of Darkness on your Scorpax destroyers. It made no sense that this relic can only be used on warriors and Lich Guard. It was stupid, and now it's changed. Of course, you can also use it on your Wraith and Flayed ones, but I would not recommend it for Wraith, because Wraith already have the 12-inch move and they can move through walls, and the Flayed ones have their innate deep strike ability. But anyways, you can do that. For example, if you want to move a 20-man blob of Flayed ones to your opponent's deployment zone in the first turn, and especially if you're Novok, you'll be getting +1 to the charge, and it's not a bad combination, but probably the Scorpax are still my favorite unit to use for the Veil of Darkness, because Scorpax are the unit that is pretty fragile if they try to cross the board themselves. Continuing the topic of movement, the Relentless March Aura will now affect the Scorpax, your Wraith, and your Triarch Praetorians, helping them cross the board, and those units are the most important ones for this ability. Of course, it's great that Lich Guards were able to utilize the +1 to move, but Lich Guard have a 5-inch basic move, so they only moved 6 inches with this ability. Unlike the Scorpax and the Wraith that are already very fast, and that 1 extra inch of their movement really helps them to make the charge, to reach the opponent as soon as possible. Now all the aforementioned units can get +1 to hit from My Will Be Done and reroll once to hit from the Lord's Will. Rerolling once won't be effective for your destroyers because they have it innately, but it will be great for your Wraith and your Triarch Praetorians. My Will Be Done, however, will be an awesome addition to your score packs, which will be hitting on 2s with that, and your Wraith, which will bring them back to 3s to hit as they previously were in 8th edition. And now when we can give the +1 to hit to all the units that we actually want to give +1 to hit to, makes upgrading your Overlord to a Pharaon's Hand for 2 command points not a useless command point expenditure. Now you can use the Implacable Conqueror trait to reroll charges on all of your melee units. Not only for your Lich Guard, which are pretty slow, and when they are charging usually means that the opponent is already up close to your army. 1 command point stratagem to increase the strength of your melee attacks for your core units is very strong now. Previously it was rarely used because on your warriors it's almost useless, they only have 1 attack each and no AP, unless you're playing Novok. And on your Lich Guard those already have strength 6 on their swords, and it's a very universal strength already. You are wounding on 2s the toughness 3, you are wounding on 3s toughness 4 and toughness 5, and only if you're targeting toughness 6 and toughness 7 it was useful. But for Scorpack Destroyers it's a very important upgrade because you will be reaching this important strength 6 with your Thrashers and your strength 8 with your Reblades, especially if you're not using the Plasmacide. However, I almost always recommend to have a Plasmacide with each of your Scorpack Destroyers units. Next up is the named character Illuminor Saras. It's a great looking model first of all, and he's a Technomancer and he is able to use his Reanimate ability 3 times per turn, 2 times for his own ability and 1 time for the stratagem that we've talked about previously. He can also upgrade each of your core units once per game with his Mechanical Augmentation ability. However, it's pretty risky because you're rolling d3 and one of the results is upgrade to the ballistic skill, which is obviously not something that we are looking for our melee units. So now he's not that bad, and I think that he can see some play in the future. And Racket the Traveler has moved from being a great character to being an almost auto-include in any army for Necrons, because now he gives +1 attacks to all your melee units, your Wraith, your Scorpax again, even your Flayed ones and your Orphidian Destroyers. And he's an Overlord, so he also gives them Relentless March and My Will Be Done, so yeah, I think that Unracker is totally worth his 140 points. So that's it guys, that's all I want to say about the new rules for the Necrons. I hope you are as happy as I am for this faction, and if you have any questions please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.